Thank you for tuning in to the Catch a Lift Fund's Coach's Corner podcast. We hope you enjoy today's episode and will consider supporting the Catch a Lift Fund and the veterans we serve. Visit our website for more information about our programs at catchaliftfund.org. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis or suicidal thoughts, please call 988 or the Veterans Crisis Line 988, followed immediately by the number 1. The views and opinions expressed during the Coach's Corner podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the Catch a Lift Fund. The Catch a Lift Fund does not verify or warrant the truth or accuracy of statements made during the podcast, and statements therein are not to be construed as an official policy or position of the Catch a Lift Fund. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and nothing herein should be construed as health, medical, or other professional advice. The Coach's Corner is a place for veterans to connect, heal, and share their stories. I'm Melissa Luke, the host of the Coach's Corner podcast. I am a U.S. Army Iraq War veteran, coach, and program director for the Catch a Lift Fund. The Coach's Corner is sponsored by ID Technologies. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to welcome back Cal Coach Sarah Rudder this week to discuss the 2022 WheelWOD Games. Sarah is fresh off defending her title, winning at the games, and earning the title of fittest female below knee on earth. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. Sarah, congratulations on your win and welcome back to the Coach's Corner.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, we're honored to have you as always. Let's jump right into it, Sarah. Sarah, what is WheelWOD?
So WheelWOD is a CrossFit competition for adaptive athletes, running from neuro to short stature to missing limbs. So it is specifically for adaptive athletes. This year they did include able-bodied athletes, which was really cool to see how they were watching us and how we can get our workouts in just as much as they can.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Sarah, talk to us a little bit specifically about what the WheelWOD Games are.
So the WheelWOD Games was actually designed by two adaptive CrossFitters. One has been in a wheelchair for most of his life, and another one is recent. Well, a few, I would say recent. He was actually entered in a CrossFit competition, becoming from able-bodied into a wheelchair, and he continued his path, being able to show that we could still be physically active in our wheelchairs. So they've been providing programming for adaptive athletes for longer than CrossFit got on board. So given this, they were able to bring all these athletes in and separate them depending on injury and be able to create a level playing field for each of us, so that people like me don't have to compete. People like me don't have to compete with people with, able-bodied limbs.
Right.
So they're still working on, not as far as WheelWOD, but the CrossFit Games are still working on trying how to separate our categories.
Right. And Sarah, could you just touch on it a little bit, for anybody that's really not familiar, why would that matter? Why would it be important to be able to really break down those adaptive divisions, talking about, if a joint is involved in an amputation?
So for us, unlike the Olympics or something, people are classified for exactly one sport only, whether it's discus or shot put or running. So they're qualified for that one specific sport. For us, we have to look at the whole playing field because we are doing so many different activities, from running, jumping, pull-ups, and some of us that don't have limbs physically can't do some of the movements. And if we're with somebody that has two full working legs and they're jumping, they're obviously going to jump a lot faster and higher than me, not getting that pressure from the ground. So given the classifications, they look at how the joint moves, how much they can use it, and how much of a deterrence is it for them in these workouts. There are tests that are done to show the type of movement that they're capable of doing. They go back and they look at their videos to make sure that they're not saying one thing and doing another, which for me is a very big thing that they do, because a lot of people can say, well, I can't move this. And then you go back and look at their videos and they're doing flips.
Right.
So, they want to make sure that the people are classified in each group that are supposed to be there, so that way it's a level playing field. So I'm not feeling like I am pushing my body beyond what it's capable of doing in order to keep up with someone I'm incapable of keeping up with in the first place.
Thank you for that. Thank you for speaking to that, Sarah, because not everybody really has an understanding of it. And I think it's important to talk about that.
Right.
Sarah, how do you qualify for the WheelWOD Games?
So they have an online qualifier that they will put up, and you go through the first part of the workouts. It might be 6 workouts in one weekend that you might have to compete. That you'll have to complete. You'll have to have it videotaped, you'll have to have a judge, and then you submit your videotape and your scores. And that will go on for you do about 6 workouts in one weekend, and then you might have another weekend where you do another 6 workouts. And then the top, let's say 20 people from those workouts go forward. Then they'll have another weekend where they have about 4 to 5 workouts, and then they'll from there, they'll modify it down to 5 people after that last bit of workout. So they're slowly taking people away that are towards the bottom of the list and moving those that are higher in score up. So once you become the top 5, you can move from there and then go to the final competition for the finale, and you compete there. We did 15 workouts in 3 days. It was disgusting, but I loved it.
We're definitely excited to talk about those. I bet it was quite disgusting at times. Sarah, about how long of a time span was that, for all of the online qualifiers before the games themselves?
It goes on for a few months. If you don't catch it right away, sometimes that they'll go back and say, last minute qualifier. So you can have those last minute people come in and still compete for that top position last minute. You only have a few of those because the last few workouts they're a lot harder. So once you go into those, they're still only taking the top 5. And again, that's based on injury. So they're going to give each group their own workout depending on their disability.
Okay, wonderful. And like I said, we're definitely going to get back to the games. We're going to go through what that really looked like for you. But I want to talk a bit about competition and competition mindset before we get there, and what it takes to be able to compete at a national and a world level. Sarah, would you give us some background on your competition history?
So for me, I actually started in doing Marine Corps trials, and then I went on to Warrior Games, and then I did Invictus. So from there, being around military members and being around crowds, that's where I learned to get my strength a little bit more, because I was around people who understood. So being around people that understood allowed me to relax a little bit more. So I started there, and then I found CrossFit after my leg amputation. And once I started doing CrossFit, I realized that I am able to do a lot more than I thought I could do, or what I thought other people were telling me that I couldn't do. So for me, being able to break down all those barriers, telling all those people, nope, I can do this, and you're not going to tell me I can't. Or I'm going to find a way that I can do it. So for me, it was just being able to push myself to get out there, it was definitely hard. Going from the Invictus where people understood into the civilian side where people really don't understand our disabilities. For me, I just would reach out to the people running it, and I would have a side conversation with them, telling them about my PTSD and my injuries, and just to, please keep an eye out on me. And they did the whole time. They made me feel extremely welcome and comfortable, and I was able to, get away when I had to, and nobody asked any questions. So it was, I felt really included, and I didn't feel like extremely as nervous as I thought I was going into it.
Yeah, that's terrific to hear. Sarah, so what you've just illustrated, and you talk about it very modestly, is world level competitions. You're competing against some of the best athletes in the world. Sarah, what does it take to compete at that top level?
A lot of dedication. I was doing up to 2, sometimes 3 workouts in a day if I had to swim, every single day. Except Sunday, I would have my rest day on Sundays, but I would be working every single day on all my weaknesses, and I would just make sure that I held myself accountable. That was the biggest thing. I mean, there was some days where I'm like, I'm so sore, I'm so tired, I don't think I could do this. And I would just have to push myself to go into there to know that somebody out there is going to be working harder than me. And I have to show that I'm working just as hard as them in order to make my spot. So dedication for me and accountability was really big. I made sure that I scheduled my workouts like I would a doctor's appointment. I'm not going to miss that. So I have to make sure that I'm taking care of me.
So, you're starting to touch on it there. How really would you structure or prioritize a day to be able to make sure, because you coach at Catch a Lift, you compete at a high level, you're having to train at a high level, you're also a wife and a mother. How are you managing all of that, and how are you prioritizing that day?
Organized chaos.
I love it, for sure.
So I have 2 teenagers in 2 separate sports, so 8 trips to the school a day.
So we've got that too.
Yeah, 8 trips to the school a day. It's great. So for me, I would, separate that 1 hour where I know that nothing is going to interrupt me. And again, scheduling it like a doctor's appointment. This is for me, not only for, being able to compete, but for my mental health. That way I'm leaving everything in the gym and I'm not coming in and taking it out on my husband and kids. So for me, it's something that is a necessary and a must that I have to do in order for me to get through a day.
Talk a little bit, Sarah, about training on bad days, because we know they're going to come physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it may be. What does that look like? How do you push through to be able to continue to move forward?
On bad days, I would, yes, it would suck, and I don't want to do it. But as soon as I started looking at, I would look at some videos like other people lifting or things like that to get me like, hey, they're in there, why can't I? So that would get me in the mood watching videos. Also, the choice of music is very important for me. Being able to get into the right mindset. And then also making sure that I'm not overtraining on those days.
Right.
Like on those days when I'm tired and I'm not feeling it, I have to know that I can only push myself so far to avoid injury. So that's really important, being able to listen to my body and not pushing myself past what I'm capable of doing.
Thank you for talking about that. So something that, and I know I've certainly struggled with this, and I know other people do, Sarah, how do you handle kind of specifically negative thoughts as they arrive, as you're especially building up towards a big competition?
Negative thoughts, unfortunately, are always going to be in the back of your head. They're constantly going to be there. You can't do this, you can't do that. But for me, it's more like I'm going to prove them wrong.
So, Sarah, something a lot of people definitely deal with, and I know I deal with it myself, especially when you're talking about preparing for a competition, is negative thoughts. Sarah, how do you specifically handle negative thoughts as they arise?
So with the negative thoughts, it's more from other people telling me I can't do something. And I'm not going to allow someone else to tell me what I can and can't do. I'm going to prove it to myself if I can or can't do it. I'm going to go out there, like working on my balance. Balance is very huge for amputees.
Right.
So if I'm going out there and working on my balance, if I notice just a little bit of increase of what I was capable of doing before, then I'm going to keep pushing myself to say, no, I know I can get better at this because I'm already noticing the small improvements. So I'm going to go out there and push as much as I can to prove to all those naysayers that I could do it.
Heck yeah. So, Sarah, as you know very well, many of our catch lift veteran athletes compete at a very high level. What advice would you have to any veterans listening who are struggling, to really find the time or motivation to pursue competitive athletics in any regard?
So I would say that you have to, again, going back to accountability, you have to make sure that you're giving what you want out of it. So if I'm only giving half of myself in every single workout, I'm only going to give half of myself at a competition. So I need to make sure that I'm working at that level all the time. So being able to compete at that level and hearing all those naysayers, you take all that stuff and you drill it into your workouts like, nope. And, add that extra weight, or, make a video of yourself and send it to someone saying, yep, told you. It makes yourself feel better. Just those small increases each day, breathing better, getting deeper in your squats. I mean, all the small improvements are going to lead you to that final destination of being able to compete.
That's tremendous. Thank you so much for speaking on that, Sarah. I want to kind of shift gears back here a little bit and talk about the 2022 WheelWOD Games specifically. So once you found out that you had qualified and you were heading back to the games for the second year in a row, what was that? How did your training shift? How did that preparation shift for you mentally and physically?
To be honest, this year was hard. I kind of doubted myself for a long time because I had gotten COVID for my first time, and then the flu went around, and my training had kind of been put on the back end. And so it wasn't only until like 2-3 weeks prior to the competition that I was able to actually start working back up again. And I was really doubting myself, like, I don't know if I could do this. And I had all that naysayer in my head. And it was just like, all right, what's the worst that can happen? I don't win. That's okay. I made it this far, given the fact that I didn't think I was going to make it this far at all. So I'm just going to go and give it what I can and go from there. And for me, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I listened to my intuition and pushed myself to go, because I was really contemplating whether to go or not. And I'm just glad I made the right decision.
Oh, heck yeah. Sarah, talk to us about the games. What did that weekend involve for you?
So I arrived a day early because traveling is hard for me. So I always need that day to decompress. And then the next day we would check in and get to see all the athletes. And then that very next morning, 7 o'clock, we start. You'll end up doing 3 to 5 workouts in a day, depending on what the workouts are. And the workouts were pretty brutal this year. The weights increased, the reps increased. And for me going into it, I was really nervous because I also have a new injury. And I had to decide that, yes, I'm going into this. I'm going to give it everything I can because this is most likely my last competition. So for me, it was, I needed to give my all. And that's exactly what I did. Just dumped everything that I had into those 3 days of hell pretty much, and got through it. I passed out after every single workout. Because except for two I didn't. So that was good. Only because of my new injury. Unfortunately, makes me pass out after exerting myself
Oh, that's
beyond.
brutal.
So I either pass out or puke. So I had medical, I let them know
Yeah.
every single time. So I did pass out or puke, but I got through it, and I was able to, make sure I was hydrated, make sure I was stretching, make sure I did whatever I could do to make sure I'm avoiding extra injury and I'm taking care of myself.
Sarah, I was going to say in that regard, at the end of a day of competition, right? Because again, this is not a single day of competition. This is multiple days. Once the bell kind of clears for that day, you head back to your hotel. What does the recovery look like for you at that point? What are you focusing on? What are you doing in that time?
For me, food is huge. When I'm in a competition, I have to make sure that I'm fueling myself, because during the competition, while I'm actually doing all the workouts, it's hard for me to eat.
Yeah.
So because I'm always afraid to eat, or not eating the right amounts and then getting sick. So I only graze throughout the day while I am competing, and then at night I make sure that I eat a good meal and that I'm stretching. Stretching is huge, mobility big time. And then also my Theragun.
Nice, yeah.
Using that all the time. So for me, mobility and food is a big thing.
Tremendous. I have two kind of questions now, Sarah. They kind of go together, but I want to break them down because there's definitely a difference. Some events are more physically demanding, and some it takes a lot more mental to get through it. Sarah, what was the most physically challenging event of the weekend?
Oh, for me, it would be, so we had these things called the coffin. And it's like
Sounds bad already.
It's like a huge, it's almost like a long box for a box jump, but it's higher. So it's probably about 30 inches in height and about 6 feet long. So we had that laid out, and then we had a box, and inside that box was a kettlebell, and it would move around every time you picked it up. So what we had to do is pick up that box with the kettlebell in it and bring it up and over the coffin.
Oh my gosh.
And then jump over, and then back up and over the coffin and jump over. And then all while we were wearing a 14-pound vest.
Oh, plus, not,
yes.
Not only.
So from that, we had to go into a 400-meter run, which most of it was uphill. And giving a prosthetic running uphill is no bueno.
Yeah.
So we did that. So it was, I believe it was 4 rounds of that, of a 400-meter run, and then taking the box up and over the coffin 5 times. So with a 14-pound vest. And that was my 3rd workout of the day. So I went out all hot, like, oh yeah, 2 meters, I got this. And after the coffin, I was dying. I was like, oh, I was an idiot to do that. So I kind of just paced myself after that. I was like, all right, maybe I won't win this one, but I'm going to finish. So I would say that one was one of my hardest. And then I would say another one, like a chipper. Those kind of get into your head because you know exactly how many reps that you have to get through. And it's like, oh, I got to do 30 pull-ups. I got to do 20 muscle-ups. I got to do 20 toes to bar. And I got to do all these burpees and jump ropes. And I've got 15 minutes to get through all of this. So you kind of have to know how to pace yourself to get through, because you're not going to go hot out of the gate and expect to do 100 pull-ups right away and not be tired. So learning to pace yourself through those was great. For me, it was good to know that at 40 years old, I can still do my muscle ups. And,
for real.
And in order for me, a lot of people didn't realize like why I was doing it. But once I do my muscle up and I knew I wasn't going to get another round and I was at the top and I needed a break, I would flip over the bar So that way I wasn't coming down and hanging right there.
Yeah.
I would be able to flip over and get down. So people are like, why are you flipping? I'm like, it's less energy. So you would see all these people starting to flip. They're like, oh yeah, it is less energy. I'm like, I do what I can to save wherever I can. I'm getting old for this. You know, I'm competing against anywhere from 18 years old up.
Right.
And I got to keep up with them. So it's good to know that I can still, you know, hold myself in those age groups, which is great. But I'm definitely starting to feel it.
Oh, you definitely still can hold yourself in there, but it certainly does change as we age. There's no getting around that. Going back to that chipper workout, Sarah, and like you said, you know, going into it, you've got just a slug of reps. You've got this limited time to do it. Mentally, what are you telling yourself before that bell goes off to start?
Pace myself.
Okay.
Like, don't look around. Don't look at what anyone else is doing. Pay attention to what's in my lane and listen to my breath.
So I'm sorry, I just want to stop you there because you said something that, and I struggle with this. I've struggled with this before when I compete, and it's pay attention to yourself, right? Don't be looking to your left and right and what people have going on. What helps you stay focused on you in that moment? Not worrying about, if you see someone get out ahead of you or whatever it may be.
So for me in that moment, that I know that I made it that far. And so we're all pretty even in that realm, right? So when we all line up to do that workout, I know that we're all even. So if one is going hot out the gate, and I know that, okay, they're going to slow down, and eventually I'll be able to catch up to them, and then I'll be able to keep that pace when they're going to start moving backwards. So I just, in my head, I'm actually laughing, like, yep, I'm going to catch up. I'm going to catch up. So I just, make sure that I'm staying in my lane, focusing on my own movement and keeping to my plan, because I know my plan is going to work for me. So with me, I just making sure I pick a number. Like, let's say it's like 40 toes to bar or 40 pull-ups. So from there, I know I'm not going to do all 40 at once. So I'll be like, I'll look in my head and be like, all right, I know I could get 10 and still be good and not tired. So I'll do 10 and then I'll rest. And then I'll do 10 and I'll rest. Because I know if I try to go out the gate and try and do all 40 at once, my next movement, I'm going to be gassed. So you have to know where to take those breaths and to not focus on who is in front of you and how far in front of you they are, because you're going to catch up.
Do you get nervous, Sarah? Before, either at the start of the day or before the events? Like, are you nervous?
Oh my gosh, I got bubble guts for days. So
I mean, that's its own set of issues, right? Like that brings on physically and stuff. So how are you handling that?
Honestly, I'm a nervous wreck up until I line up. I'm still nervous, but once that buzzer goes or the whistle goes off and to start that workout, it's like, all right, I got to work. It's on me. So at that point on, I just try and focus on myself and then know that, hey, this is going to be over within 15 minutes. So I know that I could just deal with my bubble guts later.
So on the competition floor, and it could certainly happen at any point in the competition, any workout of that day or anything, but even, on that last day, maybe that last event or one of the last events when you were just so damn tired because you've been giving it your all of these events, when it feels like you have no more to give, Sarah, what do you tap into? Because I've seen you in those moments and it's absolutely unbelievable. So if you could try to take us through that.
So for me, it's like, I've made it this far and I've gone this far and I'm not giving up now. We're towards the end. I got to put everything that I have left in the tank and put it into whatever I got left, because after this, it's over and it's going to determine where I place. So I have to dig deep to know that, hey, this is going to be over soon. Let's just get through this minute of suckiness and move on and know that it's going to be over with. This is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
is going to feel like it, but I just got to know that not only that, but people are watching. And as people watch, I want them to know that just because they're missing a limb or because they have a disability that they're not capable of doing something. We like to know, we like to show them that, hey, we might be disabled, but we have the ability to get through these workouts. And we're not scaled. A lot of people are like, oh, there's scale in the workout. No, we're doing the exact same workout as any top level CrossFitter. But yes, we might have to change a movement or we might have to change a rep scheme because our limbs physically can't do it.
Yeah.
But we are still putting in the exact same amount of work, which people don't understand. When you're missing a limb, you're automatically doing 40 to 70% more work just walking. So imagine that 40, 70% in a workout when you're having to do a box jump or when you're having to run or when you're having to swim. We're having to put in that much more effort in order to get through the workout. So for me, knowing that you might have a 10-year-old watching, that I can inspire that 10-year-old to say, no, regardless of what you're being told, you could do this. Look, it's in proof. Yeah. You see it yourself. And I would love to reach those ones to know that they're capable of doing it. They just have to put in the work.
Well, you're definitely reaching them. You're reaching a wide swath of people. And I've got to tell you, one of my favorite competition moments ever, myself, competitions I've been at, I've watched, was you a couple years ago at the Noble CrossFit Games. And it was that last event in the Coliseum. The jerks, you had already smoked shoulders repeatedly that day. You had an incredibly heavy bar. And it started out and you had some misses and stuff. And a lot of people would have been done after a miss or two on that press. And you kept grinding and grinding and grinding. And not only did you start hitting them, you started hitting multiple. I have never seen guts and determination like that out of anyone. That's just, it stands out in my head. It's just, I kind of get choked up thinking about it. Like, it was absolutely phenomenal, so, everything you said, just, you definitely are, making that difference in people's lives that are watching. It's absolutely tremendous. Sarah, looking back at that weekend of the WheelWOD Games in 2022, what was the most memorable part of that weekend?
For me, there was so many. Being able to see all the adaptive athletes again, grinding out there, for me, it's inspirational, being able to see all of them. They've become a real good part of my life, and I reach out and talk to them still to this day. So that is one good. I would say another one for me was my last event, which was cleans. Heaviest clean, 4 reps.
Oof.
So for me, I started off nice and light and then worked my way up. And I really wasn't paying attention to my weight so much because I had someone else loading the bar. I just tell them how I feel. So once I did the lift, I was like, all right, put 10s on. Do the lift, all right, put 5s on. And I wasn't really paying attention to the weight, but I ended up using my PR weight and doing 4 reps.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Me, that was the last event. Or for me, that was the last event that I gave my all. Because the last event coming around, I knew score-wise that I didn't have to kill myself on the last workout, and I would still win. So the one for me is I just went super heavy, and I got my last rep in at the 2-second mark that was left. And I didn't think I was going to make that lift, and it was just amazing that I was able to get that lift in. And for me, it was like a great ending to an amazing weekend. So for me, being able to cycle my PR and then also coming into the weekend, not being fully prepared and afraid that I wasn't going to be able to accomplish much at all, being able to do that for me was a highlight.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Going back to that moment, we're right. Like you said, you're cycling that PR, you're hitting another rep, 2 seconds out. What was going through your head?
Mine was, do not drop this bar. Do not drop the bar, because that would have been it. As soon as
Yeah.
you have to get all 4 reps in a row, and as soon as you drop the bar, that was it. So for me, it was like I had to focus. Do not drop this bar. And there was no chalk or anything. My hands are full of sweat, so I'm just constantly trying to wipe it off. And my last rep for me was like, it was a close one. My fingers were just hanging on, but for me, it was hard. It was hard.
That's incredible. A minute ago, Sarah, when we were talking about one of the most memorable parts of the weekend, and you talked about that community of athletes. Talk to us a little bit about what the community is like at the WheelWOD Games with these athletes.
For me, it's just like going into like a military competition, if not actually better, because they're more laid back. A lot of them have been dealing with their injuries their entire life.
Okay.
And then having us who have newer injuries coming in and being able to reach out to them and say, well, what worked for you? What didn't work for you? Or how do you get through this? How do you get through that? So leaning on the other athletes that have had to deal with this their entire lives and getting the information from them is great. So there's that. And then they're very humbling, knowing that, hey, we're all here, we're all adaptive. But we're all going to kill ourselves in this one workout. And regardless who comes in what, we're going to rally around each other. And we're going to tell everyone, you did an amazing job. We're happy that you're here, and, keep grinding. So, just continually giving each other that positive support to get through the day was it was amazing. And then reaching out to those athletes who are a lot worse off than you too.
Yeah.
Like we had quads there. Quadriplegics that were there, and they competed too. So being able to look at me and say, okay, well, I have a paper cut. I'm just missing my lower limb. These people can barely have movement in their upper bodies, and they're here swimming and pushing weights and lifting weights. And it's just like, there is no excuse
For sure.
of why we can't do better for ourselves.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Sarah. That's incredible. For any veterans or really anyone listening, Sarah, that's looking to pursue the WheelWOD Games, what advice would you have for them?
For me, it's consistency, training, hold yourself accountable, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. You don't know exactly where you stand unless you put yourself out there and try it. I wish I had done it a lot sooner, because I didn't. Because I was always being compared to someone with 2 legs, because I never had that competition. So I never knew exactly where I stood. And being able to get into that community and competing with people who have new injuries or been dealing with their whole life, being able to get in there and get the camaraderie and work together and get the work done, it's just the support level is there, and it's definitely needed. To reach out and ask questions, and just don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Sarah, one last question for you today. What does it mean to you to be CALStrong?
Never giving up, never giving in to your demons. We're here, we're a tribe, we're family. We might all have our good days, we might all have our bad days, but on those bad days, we have to know that we have each other to reach out to. And you're never alone. So just know that we're always here as a family to help you. We never want to see anyone struggle, and we never want to see, the typical suicides that we have all the time. We want to be able to show them that they could dump everything that's in their head into a bar. And being able to push through that and having the family there for you is everything.
Congratulations, Coach Sarah, on an outstanding performance at the 2022 WheelWOD Games. We couldn't be more happy for you or proud to have you on our Catch a Lift team. Thank you for coming back on the show and sharing your light with all of us today. It was absolutely tremendous. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week for another episode highlighting our CALStrong athletes. A special thank you to Coach Sarah Rudder for joining us today and talking to us about the WheelWOD Games. Don't forget to join us every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for a chance to win Cal swag and to chat with your brothers and sisters. If you liked today's episode, please be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and leave us a review on your favorite streaming service. Until next week, keep it real and stay CALStrong.